The times were hard, and Ebenezer was not a rich man. He and his family provided their means from a small piece of land, and while his skills were many, he was most well renowned for his aptitude in curing pork. On harvest day, after the highly perishable and instantaneously delectable parts of the pig had been prepared, Ebenezer would remove the bones from the entire pig so that all of the pork could be salted and cured. Fresh pork was a rare meal in Ebenezer's home, for there was a great responsibility in times of abundance to prepare for that of scarcity. Beyond the necessary economics of preservation, though, is a simple mystery of the universe. In the course of desiccation and fermentation, there is an alchemy, a marriage of utility and beauty, of form and function, by which fresh pork is transformed into culinary royalty. Preserved pork tastes incredibly well. And though the process requires significant labor and even more time, Ebenezer's methods were very simple. He applied salt to the pork flesh, waited, and then removed the salt from the pork flesh, and waited some more. Furthermore, he did so with confidence, and his cures were always stable and delicious. His knowledge was not that of empirical facts, figures, and measurements. He knew that salt was responsible for curing, but not that this process was governed by the phenomena of osmosis, diffusion, and semi-permeable membranes. Ebenezer was blissfully unaware of the existence of microorganisms, which are solely responsible for the curing process. He had no understanding of their omnipresence, nor the difference between beneficial and spoilage bacteria, or that they are both always present. He knew very well that placing meat under a barrier of fat was a good thing, but didn't have the theoretical vocabulary to describe the effects of anaerobic environments on aerobic bacteria. He knew that healthful pigs yielded good cures, but not that those in poor health carry a higher risk of spoilage and pathogenic bacterial contamination. Ebenezer knew fully well that his cures would turn out well being hung in his cellar, but was unaware of the fact that, as is the case with every natural process on Earth, that genetic diversity is paramount in maintaining a healthful curing environment. Ebenezer preserved based on his senses. If a prosciutto smelled like vomit or looked like a pile of dinosaur turds, he wouldn't eat it. He trusted himself to make that evaluation. It could be said that these very human qualities of sensibility and consideration are imperative elements in the process of curing pork with excellence. As it turns out, it's extremely difficult to scale and monetize something so intangible, implicit, and immeasurable as sensibility, which, when things began to change, was eliminated entirely from the process of curing pork. Sensibility and consideration were replaced with facts, figures, and precise measurements. This contemporary commercial process is based upon subjective scientific causalities, presented to the public with a poorly contextualized, industrially fabricated, and federally disseminated rhetoric of fear, in which Wentworth was deeply entrenched as he stood horrified and paralytic, weighing his options. Despite the fact that his bacon was manufactured in a sanitized facility that injected its bacon with sanitizing chemicals and was stored in a vacuum-sealed package, and his floors were just bleached and cleaned, and that he would cook the bacon to 220 degrees just to be safe, Wentworth's concern was prodigious. Corey knocked again. After several minutes, she asked Wentworth through the door if he would let her in because she knew he was there because she could hear him breathing heavily. Wentworth was trapped. He had to choose. On one side, fatty package of porcine death. On the other, not seeing Corey. In the most courageous maneuver for which he had ever mustered the gumption, Wentworth picked up the bacon off the floor and let Corey in. They made bacon sandwiches and sat on the couch afterwards, watching some of Wentworth's favorite television commercials. They spoke infrequently, but enjoyed each other's company. On her way out at 8:45 p.m., she touched Wentworth on the forearm and said that she had a nice time. Then Wentworth said that he had a nice time too, and he smiled, and then Corey smiled back. Well, Wentworth was so positively delighted that he missed his bedtime by 3 minutes. He turned on his air conditioner, dehumidifier, and antiseptic air freshener. He put on his prescription eye mask and said goodnight to Jumbly. As he closed his eyes, he swam in the euphoria of his evening with Corey. He thought about how proud he was that he had picked up the bacon off the floor. But then he started to think about picking the bacon up off the floor, and then his heart began to beat a little faster, and then he started to feel a little bit funny. His tummy became rumbly, and his head began to ache, and his ears clogged up. His toes tingled, and he felt the sniffles coming on. His concern mounted, and his heart raced fast, and his mind raced faster. He began wildly postulating. Giardia, positively. No, cholera, or pneumonia, or trichinosis. Could it be cancer? Good grief, it could be anything. Rabies, or plague, or angina, or botulism, or AIDS? Maybe he was pregnant. Was that possible, he wondered? Whatever the affliction, Wentworth was just so upset with himself, he was absolutely certain he would perish before the sun rose. And he did. Jumbly was very sad, but nonetheless, carried on.